Hello, hello. Welcome to Can I Recycle That with me, Bruce Bratley. I'm the CEO of First Mile, and this is your weekly fix of answering recycling questions and debunking recycling myths. I'm in a new room and it's a bit echoey, so apologies for that, but we will press on. So, I'm a guest in today. I am very excited to have on this week's episode of Can I Recycle That? George from SimpiflyByGeorge. Hi George, we have got
Hello.
Excellent, George is here. I'm super excited because George is a decluttering and simplification of your life expert. We're going to be hearing all about what George does in a second, but I think this is super relevant for Can I Recycle That, because quite often when you're decluttering your house and having a massive sort out, you have a lot of material that you potentially could recycle or reuse or upcycle, which is super important. I also think that recycling can sometimes be associated with clutter and cluttering up your house. So hopefully George is going to tell us how to do recycling in a way that doesn't feel like you're driving your house into more clutter. And finally, it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week. And I think people having a simplified life, a decluttered life, and being able to find things in their home actually contributes massively to our mindfulness and mental well-being. So really welcome to the show, George. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here. Really good.
Good stuff. Right, so we're going to hear a little bit about what you do and why it's important to declutter your house and the sorts of things you do. And just a reminder for everybody that's watching, send in your questions. This is all about answering your decluttering questions, your recycling questions. Can I recycle that? If you've got any reuse or upcycling questions or any wider environmental questions, hit us up with them. We're happy to answer them. So ask away. So George, over to you. Can you tell the viewers what your business does and how it helps us all?
Yeah, sure. So I'm George from SimpiflyByGeorge. It's nice and easy. It's not difficult to remember my name. And basically what I do is I go into people's homes and I help them declutter, organise. And I call my business Simplify because for me the important thing is to make sure that I make people's lives simple, more simple, because I think everybody, like you say, everybody gets really caught up in all of the things that go on in life, and if you can do anything you can to make it more simple so that those little things that nag you aren't nagging you anymore, apart from your children of course, which always nag you because you can't do anything about that, but you can do other things about your life that make life simpler. So yeah, I'm based in Kingston in Surrey, and I work with people in London, I work with people in Surrey area, and obviously during lockdown I've been doing a lot to work with people virtually, so I've been doing a lot to support people from a virtual perspective.
Yeah, and have you found that you've had more demands now that people have been locked up at home for a long time and you're sort of faced with clutter 24 hours a day rather than just at the end of each working day?
I think it's really different. A lot of the people I help normally are working mums, so they have a very busy work life, and they have children, and I think for a lot of those people right now the idea of doing anything in their house apart from homeschool and do their work is quite challenging. I have helped some people who are in that situation. I think people are just doing what they can, how they can, and just trying to keep things going. So yeah, I think it's very difficult at the moment for a lot of people who I normally help to get their heads around doing anything other than just surviving day to day, to be honest.
I think a lot of it is survival. And how on earth did you get into this sort of business? I mean, are you one of these people who's like super tidy, or how does one get into decluttering?
Do you know, it's really funny. I have been a project manager for years, and I think I'm organised by nature. I think we were brought up in a household where everything was organised. There was definitely a place for everything, everything in our house had a place. So I think it's hard coded into my nature. But I was working as a project manager up until till April last year, and I left because I was working in the civil service and it wasn't an easy thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And I'd been thinking about doing this on and off for about 10 years, but kept thinking, oh no, it's never going to work. Oh no, it's not going to work. And I went, during the time I had off while I was thinking about what I was going to do next, I went to help a friend and sorted out her room for her and said, I've been thinking about doing this for a business. And she was like, that will never work. Anyway, the following week I got a phone call from one of her friends saying, you were helping her out, could you come and help me out? And then it just went from there. So it was just that thing of like, then the next person phoned the next person, and before you knew it I was like, oh, I've got a business, you know, this is something that I can do and I can help people with.
It's often the way, isn't it, when it's sort of like the customer pain is apparent, and then you suddenly realise actually there's something going on here, and it's without giving away all your IP and amazing ideas. What should I go and do after this call to declutter my life and simplify it, other than putting the kids in the recycling bin?
Wouldn't that be nice? So I think the thing is that, and I think especially around sustainability, because that's one of the things that's really important to me. And I do think living an organised life allows you to be more sustainable. I think I did a post earlier this week about someone that I helped very early on with her kitchen, and I helped organise her kitchen for her. And as part of that, we found a lot of food that she wasn't using because she was busy, she was buying stuff on the way home, and she just kept shoving it in the cupboard, and she didn't actually know what she had.
Yeah.
So I think bringing our level of organisation means that people know what they've got, they know where it is, and then they actually know what they need. And I think that's the first thing for me is that just by bringing that sort of organisation to your life and just knowing where things are and what you've got means that you don't end up wasting money and wasting resources.
Yeah. Which is kids. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on. No, I was going to say, and it's just trying to make use of the things that you've got. So I would always say, and you'll see this with a lot of organisers, the secret to keeping things organised is just trying to categorise things. And you'll see with some organisers, they tell you to go out and buy the fancy boxes to do that and things like that. And I'm very much of the ilk that if you've got a cupboard and a drawer and you've got an old iPhone box or an old shoe box, then use those things to get yourself organised. You know, you don't need to go and buy lots of products and waste more money on things when actually all you need to do is keep your pens separate from your paper, and that's all you need to do. So yeah.
Well, that actually brings us into the first question we've received from Circular Economy London, our friends there. And I'm going to get you to answer this one, George. Hopefully, this is my life's very easy with guests because I get those kinds of questions. So, what's the difference between recycling, reuse, and upcycling? There's some bit of nuancing around there, but in your view, what's the difference between those three things: reuse, recycle, and upcycle?
So, reuse for me is basically you can use it in some way, and if you can't use it, someone else can. So that for me is where I really encourage people to donate, and that's when I'm working with people, I really sort of ask those questions about, you know, do you need 12 corkscrews? And you joke about that, but I seriously had someone who had 12 corkscrews and said, you know, so for me that's like, actually those things can go to a charity shop, they can be reused by somebody else, you don't need them. Recycling is where there is something that is broken, can't be used, and then that's about taking those component parts and making them into something new. So can they be broken down, can they be recycled into something else? And upcycling is where you can take something and make it fresh again and new again. So there's a couple of people that I follow. I'm not a great upcycler, I tell you. I'm not creative in any way. I'm very organised, but I'm not creative. But there are some people I follow who take old bits of furniture and make them look like they're brand new bits of furniture by painting them and doing those sorts of things. So yeah, I would say with all of the work that I do, there's very few things that we end up sending to landfill. You know, everything either gets sent on to someone else to use or it gets recycled.
And it's, I guess you're sort of working through the entire spectrum of the waste hierarchy, because on the example you gave about somebody having too much food in the cupboard, that's about waste minimization and not having not buying food, storing it until it's out of date and then throwing it away again. You actually you were selling yourself. You don't need to be creative to upcycle, but by using an old iPhone box or another piece of paper to organise your drawer, that is indeed upcycling into another use. I think my only addition to the, what's the difference between reuse, upcycling and recycling is, in some ways, nothing. They're all brilliant, do them, and it's much better than burning stuff or landfilling materials that have got another useful life. So the more upcycling and recycling and reuse we can do, the better, really. So it's really, really important. And so when you're talking to clients, George, are they interested in the sustainable element of, do the two go hand in hand, organising people's lives and sustainability, or is it just a case of, oh, I just want to get rid of all of this crap in my house and I don't care where it goes, just get it out of here because I want a simplified life?
No, I think a lot of the people I work with, and I think you tend to attract the people who are like you when you work, people by people, don't they? And I think a lot of the people I work with are concerned that the stuff that they've got goes on to have another life. I've done a lot of playrooms over the time, and anyone that's got children knows how much stuff that their kids have. There's tons of it everywhere, and I think for a lot of parents, to let go of some of that stuff when you know how much it costs and is very difficult. To know that that's going to go somewhere where someone else is going to make use out of it makes everybody feel a lot happier. So yeah, everyone I work with, whilst they want to get rid of stuff, they want to know that it's going somewhere where it's going to be useful or it's going to be recycled. They don't want to know it's going to the tip, if it is going to the tip, that it's going to be recycled, the part that's recycled. So yeah, I think they are all really concerned about that.
And I think that's, and what's your tip for making recycling less of a cluttered area? Because sometimes it can all get a bit busy with the bin bags and the food waste bin and the recycling bin, and then there's the big bits of cardboard. I mean, is there any magic to making recycling a neater activity in your house?
I think it's just, for me, the way that we do it at home is that we make sure we've got small bins. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it just means that we're consistently getting it out of the house.
Yeah.
And I think there is a real challenge for everyone at the moment, because people who are deciding to try and get things organised and do stuff, there's a real difficulty at the moment about getting rid of stuff, because the recycling centres, some of them are open, but they're by appointment only. I've been trying to get an appointment for our local one because I did some gardening a couple of days ago, and I've got a big pile of gardening stuff that I'm like, okay, I need to do something with. All the charity shops are shut, and I think there is going to be a problem when we come out of this lockdown where charity shops are going to be overwhelmed by the amount of things. So I think at the moment people are struggling. So I'm using the back of my car to store stuff because we're not using the car, so hey, you know what? At the moment I think it's trying to find somewhere where you can still do that decluttering and still do it and find somewhere to keep it so it's not upsetting you. So yeah, find somewhere to store it.
So you've got a decluttered home but a hoarded car.
My car, honestly, the boot of my car has got so much stuff in it at the moment, it's unbelievable. I've used this opportunity to break through the whole of our house,
I think
everything.
I think it is an important point for viewers actually about charity shops. So at the moment charity shops are closed by and large. You'll struggle to find one that's open. But also, we used to send a lot, in particular, of our clothes that we send for reuse, as in whole garments. Lots of those from European countries ended up in Africa, which is a whole other story because we sort of destroyed the local textile industry by exporting John chinos. Yeah. But the reality is that material can't go there anymore, so there's actually a massive glut, and that's going to get bigger, of clothes that go to charity shops for recycling. So if there is any way in which you can donate those clothes within your family, or use a free site like Freegal where you can do peer-to-peer donations for reusing clothes, or indeed if there's you've got high value items, you can put them on eBay. So definitely think about that rather than sort of defaulting to down to the charity shop. So so we've got another question. Charity shops are definitely going to be overwhelmed. They start to open up again, so it's important to give us other options first. So the other question that came in 5 minutes ago, so I apologise to the person who asked if we got slightly carried away there, is I've got an old drawer full of phones and chargers. what do I do with them? Can I get those recycled? So I'm happy to answer the question in terms of what to do with them, George. But any intake from you? Do you tend to go into someone's house and find they've always got this sort of phone of the hoard of electronic equipment that never seems to go away?
Definitely, and for phones, I mean, there's so many sites you can sell phones on where they break down and use the parts. I mean, that's one of the things that's really important, isn't it? Is that rather than us continually mining for all of those valuable resources that need to be removed in phones, if you can send them on and they can be reused, then I think that's the best thing to do. And you can make a bit of cash out of doing that. There's loads of those phone sites that you can do that with.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just want to dump it all to First Mile, we've also got a service for getting your mobile phone recycled and any of the electric cables, wires, anything like that. Just you can send it all to us. So if you check out the website, we can take those back as well. And if you've got larger items of electronics, we can also take those through our recycled box scheme, which we'll talk about in a second. But check out the website. I'd also just like to say at this point that we've got some really good feedback coming in on the chatter here, for particularly around about places that you can send clothes. There's someone there for upcycling running clothes as well, so there's some great national.
Yeah, I've just noticed that coming in, Bruce. I was going to say that actually it'd be great if we could get all these comments together, because that's one of the things. I've got a lot of people at the moment asking questions around how to recycle stuff and where to send stuff to. So if there are places that are actively working, especially around clothing, it'd be great to get all of that together to give to people.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. So, and what Jess does after the call is she'll summarise everything on IGTV, and she'll capture all these comments as well, which is great. So yeah, check that. We'll have everything there. So someone's asking here again. I'll take this one in terms of mobile phones, and they need to get the data off the phones first. So what we do at First Mile with this is we will completely clear out the data. So if you've got an iPhone or a modern Android phone, it's relatively easy to completely restore the factory settings before you send it back to us. But if you have an older model, we can completely wipe and clear that mobile phone for you. It's the same if you send us computers or laptops. We'll completely clear down to Ministry of Defence standards any data on your laptop, mobile phone, computer. If you want a totally secure service, you can remove the hard drive. You can still send it to us, but if you sort of stick a screwdriver, bend it, or write it, we then destroy the hard drive. We've got a shredder, and it gets completely destroyed, physically destroyed, and then all the components go off to get recycled. There's lots of precious metals, copper and gold and silver in a hard drive. They go off and get recycled through a series of chemical baths. But if you want the hard drive to be destroyed, we can do that. The computer will still have a value to somebody else. We're also putting new hard drives into computers because there's the motherboard and the components that have got value. So don't think because you've destroyed the hard drive, the computer has no value for a second user. It often does, particularly laptops, particularly Apple products. Send them into us and we can get them a second home. With mobile phones, I think the rule is, if it's a newer phone, it'll probably have a resale value and it'll be easy to destroy and reset the factory settings. If it's a really old phone, it'll probably go for components anyway, so the data isn't really an issue if you can't work out how to destroy the data on it. But we'll destroy the data. If it has zero reuse value because it's so old, we'll shred that, and that will have the same horrific end in a shredder and then a chemical bath as our hard drive. So you can rest assured all the data will go. So let me just have a quick moment here to see if we've got any other questions coming up, or if I've got something for you. I'm going to ask you a question, George, while I get organised here. It's a question from me. I've got two teenagers, and the idea of tidying away is to walk through the door and then throw all their shoes in a pile near the door. How do you tidy up? How do you do the whole front door, shoe, school bag, everything dropped within a metre of the front door thing?
So there's loads of different things that you can do, but for me, I think it's just having a place for everything. So you can see there's some really nice things that you can see, and especially in America, and I think that's because they have more space, right? But in our house, we keep all our shoes under the stairs, so that's easy, and we keep the coats there and we keep the bags there. In the hallway, I've seen really nice things done where you can get a little shoebox seat where people put their shoes, hang up their bags on the coat above it, so you can get a little section. I think it's like everything. you just need to train somebody that when they take something off, that's where it goes. And I think if they're taking them off as soon as they walk through the door, don't make the storage like 3 spaces in. Make the storage where they take them off already naturally, so that there's not much for them to do to go from, oh, I took them off here to putting them in there, rather than I took them off here and now I've got to take them down the hallway. I think, just look at where things land and then try and build some storage in that position. And then it becomes a more natural thing to do, to just take them off and put them in. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. They are teenagers, so even moving in 4 inches seems to be a massive effort.
Exactly. I know with my 8-year-old son, it's bad enough trying to get him. I mean, we just suffer with a house of Lego, so we have completely different problems at the moment.
Excellent. So I think Blake, my son's just joined the Instagram live, so have you heard that one, Blake? We're going to be getting you to
the teenager. Put your shoes away.
It's pretty much doing its homework, but thanks.
So Bruce, I was going to ask you actually. So I know one of the things and one of the reasons why I've started following you a long time ago, and been interacting. So from my point of view, and like we were saying, I'm working with a lot of people at the moment who are doing virtual stuff, and they are building up things in their house, and it is difficult to get rid of it. But for anybody who's following that doesn't know about it, could you give a bit of a background to the service that you offer for people who have got stuff in their house? Because I think that's what's really interesting.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we should always use, we never get around to talking about first mile because it's so interesting on these IG lives, so thanks for asking. So, basically we've got some London services only that we can only provide in London, because that's mainly where our operational site is. I'll talk about those first, then I'll talk about the national stuff, because I can see there's some viewers from around the country. So London, we can do waste electronic collection, so if you're doing a project or having a clear out anything microwave and larger, we can do that in London for all your waste electronics. They get recycled. Go to our website, recycledbox.co.uk, and on there we have a number of services where national services. You can send us everything from Wellingtons, mobile phones, caps, tops, sprays. There's tons of senders back free of charge. We'll get them recycled or reused in the supply chain, so that's a national service. We have a great range of bins. We do an exclusive deal with a bin company called Method. There's some lovely household bins, check those out. We have eco-cleaning products with Delphis, if you want to do a deep clean of your house after all this coronavirus, check those out. And we do a national service for confidential waste collection, so if people need to get rid of their confidential waste. In London, we do more specific services, so clearances after a DIY job, larger waste electronic items, so if it's larger than the microwave, we can do those collections. If you need a top-up recycling collection or waste collection, if your council hasn't turned up, we can do all of those services. And check out our main site, which is thefirstmile.co.uk, and we'll put up all the details after the call today. So, question that came through, George, when we were in all the hullabaloo of losing the connection was, if I'm storing something, is there a sort of guideline for how long I should keep it? Because you'll talk quite a lot about space and organisation and cataloguing things. But someone's asked a great question, which is there a time limit? So if it's been in my cupboard for 6 months, should I be thinking about whether it's a worthwhile thing to have in my life?
Depends what it is, doesn't it? I mean, one of the things that a lot of people talk to me about is sentimental items, and people get worried that I'm going to be going in and going, right, chuck it all out, get rid of it all. And so it really depends what it is. I think clothes is the one that's the hardest. And I think there's lots of little things that you can do. One of the tips that I think is really useful is, if you're not sure what you're wearing, is to do this thing where you turn your hangers around the wrong way.
Yeah.
So you hang everything backwards, and then you wear whatever you wear, and every time you wear it, you hang it the right way.
No.
And then at the end of a sort of fixed period of time, you can look at what you've, not worn, basically. But I think ultimately, for me, and this is one of the things I see with clients regularly, right? Like a bad relationship, if you're honest and you sit with something, whether you need it, want it, should keep it. So you know that. And I think that's one of the things that I try and help people with is that they know it, they really do know it, and so it's not a shock, it's just the actual letting go which is the difficult thing. So yeah, I think if you're questioning yourself, you know heart of hearts whether you should have it in your house or not. Definitely.
I like that, and I think maybe that you're definitely onto something there with how we sort of come back greener after coronavirus and have because it's almost like our relationship with stuff. We sort of have this human sort of ability to buy things and hoard things and secrete things around our home, but then the relationship with them isn't necessarily a positive one, or we may not have a relationship with things. So it is almost a case of have less, but have a better relationship with it. And maybe that's one of the keys to a sustainable lifestyle. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. I think the fact that people can't be rushing out and buying stuff at the moment has meant that people are actually just rediscovering things that they've already got and thinking, oh, actually this will do and this will make do. And I think it is changing people's approaches. Like, I love that. I love the hashtag that you're trying to trend there, Come Back Green. I think it's a great idea. Really good. It's a nice one.
Excellent. So I'm going to wrap up in a minute. You mentioned earlier that you found 12 corkscrews in somebody's house. I know at least I have 3, so I'm going to go and check afterwards. So what's the I don't think it's corkscrews. What's the thing that you most often find what's the main problem that you find in people's homes that they're just hoarding and need to declutter? What's the key thing that people have too much of?
So this is one thing, and it's one thing that I think I know one of my clients has definitely used you for, is paperwork. So a lot of people I work with have folders and folders and boxes of paperwork, and the first initial problem is knowing what to keep, the second problem is going through it, and then the third problem is getting rid of it, and getting rid of it securely. So I know one of the clients I helped last year, I recommended you guys, and I think she ordered one of because I think you do a pickup, don't you, in a shredding surface.
Yeah.
Because I think when someone starts sorting through their paperwork, when they've got piles and piles of it, the idea of sitting there with a little tiny shredder that overheats after about 2 bits of paper is too much. So yeah, paperwork is one of the big areas where people really struggle, I think, and they just want someone to do it for them. Yeah.
And that's often the thing that you sort of tend to, I've seen it many times where you end up, all this paper comes into your house and then you buy a shredder and then it just it's not fit for purpose. So in terms of paper recycling, let's finish on this. Paper recycling is great. It's usually in Northern Europe from sustainably sourced forests or sustainably grown forests. It's a carbon sink. It can be recycled over and over again. The fibers get shorter, but it can be recycled many times. And keeping it relevant to coronavirus and lockdown, recycle your paper and it'll either get back into paper, which we can use again, or quite often it goes into tissue products. So we're not going to be shortage of there'll be no shortage of loo roll if everybody declutters their homes and sends us their papers for recycling. Get on the shop, firstmile.co.uk, and you can find our confidential recycling services there. So keep recycling your paper, it can be recycled. George, any closing remarks or comments or questions from you? Do you want to ask me anything before we wrap up this?
No, I think for me it was, for me the important thing was just so that people who I know I work with and who follow me get to know about you, because I think at the moment a lot of people need your services. So yeah, it was good, really good.
And if you want to declutter and find out how to work with you, your website is?
I'm just Simplified by George. I'm Simplified by George everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on the web, you can find me on Instagram. And Wednesday's a good day actually. If you start following me, I always do a little Wow Wednesday, which is my well-organised Wednesday post, which is always a little task on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock for you to go and do something. And it's usually something that's going to take about 5 or 10 minutes, so it's just a little bit of activity to get you decluttered bit by bit.
I love it. Wow Wednesday. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Simplified by George.
I love Wow Wednesday.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure you on Can I Recycle That, George, and really good to have a different perspective on recycling, upcycling, Thanks so much and have a great week. Bye everybody.
Thanks. Bye, Bruce.